Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'll be covering the scale of your objects in comparison to the world scale. I'll be covering the softness and the hardness of the shadows you get with different lights, the size of the lights, and I also will be covering different tools for lighting and positioning your lights to make it more accurate. And in my last video, I covered, if you want to check it out, I covered the general tab, all the different options you get here, the details tab for your size and the shape of the light, and also the shadows and the different shadows. But like I said in my previous video, the area shadow is the only one that's really physically accurate. Everything else kind of gives you noisy results, and you don't really want to use it. Anyway, let's just jump in. And so the first thing I want to talk about is the scale of your objects in comparison to the world scale. And what I mean by that is, for example, if you want to make a soda can, and when I first started out, that was the big mistake I made. So, the closest shape to the soda can is, to start modeling is a cylinder. So let me just create this cylinder, and let me just delete this slide so you can see. So you can see we created this cylinder, and it looks good. We can just start modeling, and it's no problem. We can just get our shape of the soda can out of the cylinder. But the problem comes in when you look at the dimensions of the cylinder. So what happens right now is your height is 200 and your radius is 50 centimeters. And it's way huge in comparison to the soda can that you want to make. So the thing I want to talk about here is, if you whatever you're making, whatever object it is, just make sure you get the real dimensions, from Google or anywhere else, and you plug them into your scenes. So, for example, I don't know the exact size of the soda can, but for example, if you're making a soda can, it's probably 5 inches height and maybe 1 or 2 inches radius. So this is the actual scale of a soda can, and now it's physically accurate. And your lighting will work way better when your objects are lit in and they put in the right scale instead of working with huge soda cans. They're like, 2 feet by 2 feet and so on. So just keep that in mind. Whatever you're making, go in here, look up the dimensions, plug them in. So we had before 200 by 200 centimeters, or 200 by 50, I think. And now when I plugged in the inches, it's not accurate. I didn't look it up, but you can get really precise and plug in your exact dimensions, and now you can start modeling, and your model and lighting will look 100 times better. Anyway, the next thing I want to cover is the different shadows you get with different sizes of the lights. So let me just create a quick plane here. And as you can see, we get a really huge plane, but that's fine. Let me just move this cylinder up a little bit, or my floor down, either way. And let me just add some fillet to our caps. That's too much. Let me just bring it out to 1, just a little bit. Give it maybe 3 steps, or 5 steps is fine. And let me just create a light. And it's going to be way huge. Everything you make automatically is way huge. So that's why I said the scale is really important. Make sure working with real scale and don't overdo it. So this is our light right here. Let me just set the shadows, put the shadows on. So you can do in general tab, shadow, area shadow, or you can go to shadow tab and activate it here. It's the same thing. And let me just angle it down towards the object and maybe bring it closer a little bit. And the shortcuts for move tool and the scale tool, like I'm using here, is E is for move tool, R is for rotation, and T is for scale. So you just keep that in mind as well. It's way faster than going into here and clicking each little tab here, or working with these little tabs. It's just faster to learn with shortcuts. Anyway, so the different shadows you get. So the bigger the light, the softer the shadows, and the smaller the light, the harder the shadows. So let me just illustrate my first point. Let me just bring it up, way up, and move it back. And let me just give it a quick render so you can see. So as you can see right now, the shadow is really soft, and that's because our light is really big. So the light right now is kind of like a softbox. It's really filling in the front of the object, and the back is really diffused and soft. So if we do the opposite now, and instead of let me go to details and see what size this is. So it's 110 by 110. Let's bring it down to 10 and 10 centimeters, and keep the position of the light in the same spot. And let me just zoom in here and give it a render and see the difference. So as you can see, this is a scenario where the sun just coming up and all the buildings are casting really hard and long shadows. So pretty much, I just want to cover this so you can keep that in mind when you're lighting up your scenes. The bigger the light, the softer the shadows, like a softbox, and the smaller the light, the harder the shadows, and also the distance gets increased of the shadows. So just keep that in mind, and let me just move on to the next thing, and my last thing that I wanted to cover. And this is of using your lights as a camera. And what I mean by that is, let me just create a few different lights around our cylinder. So let me just increase the size of this light back to normal, and let me just duplicate by holding command and drag, rotate, put it here or anywhere, doesn't matter. So you have two lights like this, and you give it a render. Let me just give it a render. So it looks something like this, and you look at your render and you're like, well, I'm not really liking the way my highlights are, my speculars, my diffuse. So you go back, you start playing with the light again, start moving it around like this manually in your perspective view. You can also go back in your four-views and get really accurate. You can see, let me just make it bigger. You can see this is our sphere, this is our light, and you can really get precise in there. But what I want to show you is this little tool that you can use instead of positioning your lights like this and just guessing. Just highlight one of your lights, just left click or any of the lights that you have in the scene, and go to tools, and you can use the lighting tool here to help you decide where the light's going to fall, like on the left of the object, on the right, on top, and so on. But what you can also do is left click on the light, go to camera, and use this little nifty tool here. It says set active object as camera. So what happens here, whatever's in front of me, this is the light acting as a camera. So see, my light that was here disappeared because I am the light right now. So what I can do is I can position the light wherever I want it to. So maybe behind an object, and bring the intensity down because it was way bright. So I'm just going to fill up the shadows in the back of my object. As you can see, this is my main light here. I got lost here a little bit. So this is my main light, and this is my fill light, and I'm using it as an object or as a camera. So let me just put it back behind the object, and I'm going to be filling up these shadows here. So when you're done, make sure to go back to your camera view. So just go back to camera, use camera, and go back to default. So right now I have it set to light. My camera is actually a light or acting as a light, but make sure you switch it back to default camera. And what happens is your light that you set up stays here, and you go back to your normal camera so you can view and see what's going on in the scene. And let's give it a render one more time, see what it looks like. So as you can see, we have our front light, and then we have our back light that's filling up the shadows in the back. So this is just a little tool that you can do and use. Set up your, use your camera, use your lights as cameras. So one more time, you click on the light, you go to camera, set active object as camera, and bam, your light becomes a camera, and then you can just move it anywhere and really get accurate with your lighting. So this is one of the tools you should use all the time. It's really nifty. So let me just get out of here, use camera, and I'll go back to default camera. So the next little tool that you can use is actually in the toolbox, like I said, the lighting tool. So you can just click on one of your lights, go to tools, and click on lighting tool. And as you can see, we get this little icon here. And what it does is, as we move this around our object, the light follows it. So if you really want to get precise, and for example, your object looks like something like this, and it's really getting a lot of shadows on the left right now, so what you can do is move it here and really fill up those areas, maybe something like this. And if you hold command, you can control the intensity, as you can see. So maybe something like this. I'm going to fill up my light right here. Maybe move it down to here so it's more even. And just let it go. I can just click on a different light and do the same thing. Or I can just go back to my move tool or my selection tool, and everything stays the same. So as you can see, I was playing around with the lighting tool, and it put my light way under my object. Let me see if it's even going to work. I don't know why. Yeah, it didn't work, even though it's showing me that it's working, but my light is actually under the plane. So that was kind of weird. That's why I like to use this other option. I use Active Object as camera instead of the tool, because I don't get the idea where my light is. So it's actually better to use the other one over this one. But whatever you prefer, they both kind of work, but I just prefer the other one. It's more accurate. Anyway, guys, hopefully this video helped you and give you some kind of idea how you can use these little tools and your size of the lights and so on to control the shadows. So in my next video, I'll probably be covering the 3-point lighting and how to get a really nice studio effect going on with 3 lights or more. So thank you for watching, subscribe, like this video, and I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.